Hi everyone. Here tonight I have Jane Busquets with me, and you may have remembered that one of our first interviews was with Julia, Jane's daughter, and we're going to do a little bit of a story on what it's like to have a sibling or a daughter that's going through such an ordeal, and a little bit about you. So let's start off with, okay, you're English.
Yes, I am.
Surprise, surprise. And when did you actually come to Australia?
Well, I came 50 years ago.
Wow.
Only intending to stay 2, and here I am 50 years later.
Wow. So you're married?
And I met my husband within that 2 years.
Here in Australia?
Here in Australia.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Well, you stayed 50.
And then, you know, we subsequently married and had children, and so I stayed.
All right. How many children did you have?
I have 2.
2.
There was always a little bit in me that wanted to go back, but, you know, when the children were little, I couldn't. So now I'm too old now. I don't want to go at all.
Yeah, it's a long trip though, isn't it?
It is a long trip.
So you married here in Australia, and did you have a farming life, I think, was it?
Yes, yeah? Yes. My husband was in stud cattle, and we accumulated the cattle before the farm, and they were sort of managed by other farmers. So eventually we found our little plot of land in Orange and moved out there and moved the cattle in.
Oh, okay. So you had the cattle first before the farm.
We did, yes.
Wow, that's something I'd do.
Cart before the horse.
Yeah, that's right. Well, you know me, I've always got everything ass up, as they say. But how long did you have the farm for?
We had that for about 30 years.
And what did you do in England before you come out to do the farming thing?
Oh, I worked for a company called, it was Clairol, and then L'Oreal.
Oh, okay, so you've gone from the...
I actually learnt about hair colours.
Oh, okay, well that would have been handy for the farm.
And had about a year in Paris working for L'Oreal.
Oh, wow.
It was wonderful.
Oh, that would have been...
Great experience.
That would have been amazing.
It was.
So
yes.
how long ago was that?
And you felt as though you were a million miles away from home, but in actual fact you weren't, because you could get on a plane, or we used to get on a train, and, you know, you were back in England in a very short time.
What an exciting life for a young
It was,
woman.
yes.
Wow. And then you've ended up on the farm in Australia. Did you ever think that would ever happen?
I think in life you never really... You look back at when you get to my age and you think, can't believe I did that or this or whatever.
I bet you're glad you did.
But it happens, you know, in a spontaneous sort of way.
And that's the way to live life, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
So then you've settled in Australia, and you've had 2 girls.
2 girls, yes.
And
one's an artist and one's a nurse.
And were there any signs way back then that anything was happening with your daughter? Like, did you pick up anything?
No. I guess I first picked it up with my husband.
So your husband had bipolar?
Look, he didn't accept that he had anything wrong with him, but he started with depression and curling up in a fetal position and staying there for weeks on end.
Oh dear.
And I hadn't come across anything like this, so I didn't quite know what it was. And sort of being young. Anyway, this went on for many years, and Julia's complaint started when she was probably a teenager, early teens. And it's just kind of grown over the years. So now she's in her 40s. I think it's thought patterns and plans that go astray nothing seems to go down a straight line.
So obviously you're very open with Julia about this,
Yes,
and you talk a lot about things that are going on in her world.
I really think that you have to talk and not shut it away, because I think, like any probably chronic illness, you go along for a while, maybe a year or two, and everything's fine. But all of a sudden, you get a hiccup, and something triggers the bipolar in this person, and maybe you need hospitalising, or so you have to go down that path and see. Stay in hospital maybe a month or something like that, and then you seem to be quite all right when you come out. But it's not an illness that ever goes away. But it does fade and then return.
And you've always been
And
there
I have
for
to
her.
learn. I've had to learn to live with it, and it is difficult because it's difficult to reason with somebody with bipolar. And if you're making plans and you say, okay, that's what we'll do, well, in the end, the opposite is carried out.
And you never know what's going to happen, do you?
And you never know. And, as I say, thought patterns are all over the place. So I often say, listen, pull your head in. I haven't finished my psychology course yet, so I'm not with you. I don't know what you're thinking. So let's start again.
So, do you feel that that's the best way of handling it? Is to be, really assertive? Would
Yes,
you say?
I do.
So
I think, as opposed to feeling sorry for them, no. You've got to not let them, because they feel sorry for themselves a lot of the time. So I have to be assertive.
So how would you say that it has or would have affected your life?
I think it's affected my life in as much I don't stop thinking about her. If she's away, I think, is she coping? If she's at home and she goes out for a few hours, she doesn't always tell me where she's going, and she doesn't come back when she's said on her due time. So then I worry, because I think, is she going to do the inevitable? Or
And the inevitable being, do you think that
she could finish her life? It's always in the back of my mind.
Oh dear, that's sad.
She has tried or attempted several times, and she's done it so that I find her.
That'd be heartbreaking.
So, I mean, I think this is a call for help. So I put everything in motion and like call the ambulance, they take her to hospital, and then we go through those motions again. But for me, it's heart-wrenching, because obviously I'm on my own now, and I can't call in anybody else for support.
So what do you do for yourself for that situation? Like, what do you do yourself to get some help or have someone to talk to? Or
I have been to group sessions for carers.
So there is an organisation.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And what does that entail? Going to a meeting and talking
It
about
does,
mums?
yes. Carers, parents, whoever they are, sit around in a group and somebody asks questions and say, would you like to talk about your problem?
And have you found that helpful?
I didn't, actually, because everyone wants to talk about their problem. Well, I mean, that's what we're there for. but I wanted specific answers just for me.
So have you found that in some other way?
I have. I don't worry about her so much anymore. If she wants to go off and do something, then that's her prerogative. I've given her, over her lifetime, as much help as I can give her. I'm there, I'm the rock.
And you live together, so you're constantly...
And we live together. I offered her a home because she couldn't manage living on her own. So there are times when she clams up and doesn't speak, other times you can't shut her up.
You know that.
But I love the girl. She's very loving, she's very emotional. She's found it hard to hold down a full-time job over the years, and because there have been such gaps of hospitalisation and recuperation. So now she's nursing. She's a very good nurse, and she's doing casual work, which seems to suit her.
Well, I guess too, if she's unwell at any time, she hasn't got that full-time commitment.
That's right. And
Well,
then
it's with the
you know,
casual.
and if you lose your job as a full-timer, it's looking for another one. So she's happy doing what she's doing, and I'm happy for her.
And there was one incident I remember talking to her about, that when she was doing her paper, and you brought in, when she was doing her law degree, and you brought in her papers to do when she was in the centre that she was in.
She actually did an exam while she was in hospital.
I know, I just think that...
And she passed 100%.
She's amazing, isn't she? She's just amazing.
Absolutely. They stun you most of the time.
Because you just never know what to expect.
No, you don't know
That's
what
one
to
thing.
expect.
I mean, you can never get bored with a situation. You know, that's the thing, because you just never know when anything's going to happen.
Yes.
So I guess,
yes.
So you've learnt to let go a little.
I have. Quite a lot, yes.
And has that eased?
It's eased the burden for me because I was suffering, high blood pressure. So I've got that down to normal.
That's great.
And I think that's just by not worrying about her anymore.
Because you've let go a little.
Well, I used to think, what if, where is she, what's she doing? And now I think, okay, fair enough. Do what you want to do.
And I guess there's a double thing here tonight, because we're talking about living with the daughter with bipolar, but we also want to bring a little bit of awareness about diabetes. And I know that you've been treated for diabetes. And when did you find out about that?
I found out in the year 2000.
Wow, that's a while.
17, 18 years.
Wow, I had no idea.
Yeah. Once again, being a chronic illness, it takes a lot to get everything right. If it's not your diet, it's the amount of medication.
So you're medicated?
I'm medicated, yes, and I take insulin. And I have to have 3 monthly checks.
So the insulin, is that daily? How many times a day is that?
Twice a day.
Oh, wow. So it's chronic.
Yeah,
so you've always looked after yourself in that respect. And then I believe recently you had a toe amputated. Is that correct?
I did, yes. I had an ulcer because of neuropathy with the feet, which means there's no feeling at all. I might have had, and your skin gets very thin, I might have had a shoe that I wasn't aware that was rubbing. And it creates an ulcer, and once you've got an ulcer, it takes months and months to heal because the blood flow isn't in your feet. So you can get gangrene overnight.
Oh.
So this toe was starting to go black. So I spoke to the podiatrist, and immediately I was taken in the next day to have this toe amputated.
Oh. And does it feel any different?
Doesn't feel any different.
Because you've lost
Well,
that
it wasn't.
feeling anyway.
It wasn't a sort of a balancing toe.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wasn't going to suddenly trip forward.
Oh, thankfully.
Yeah, yeah.
You've got less nail polish to put on now anyway.
So anyway, that was about 2 years ago, and now I've developed another one.
Oh.
So I have to have that dressed about a couple of times a week,
And then
and
is there...
we'll see how long it's going to take to heal, if it does.
Is it the same foot?
No, it's the opposite foot.
Oh, well, there, you'll be even then.
That's right.
That's how you go.
Still won't fall over.
So, all right, so we've talked about coming from England and ending up on the farm and breeding cattle and having the cattle before the farm. That's quite intriguing. I love that.
Well,
bit.
actually, when we, my husband and I separated, my other daughter was living on a farm in the north, near Moree. And she had 2 little children, and she said, "Oh, do you want to come and help me?" It's very isolated where she was. So I said, "Okay, I'll come and do that. I'm always up for a change. Change is as good as a rest."
You get that here, don't you?
Yeah, yeah. So I found a lovely old house beside a running river, which was the wider river, and so I bought this house and land, and knocked the house down because it was sort of a lean-to, and built myself a nice little house.
Huh.
I hadn't been in it 6 months when Sophie and her husband said they were selling up and moving to Newcastle, which, you know, proves probably you shouldn't follow your children. Anyway, I took it all on the chin, and they said in those country towns houses are very difficult to sell. The average is about 2 years.
Wow.
Oh yeah, most country towns,
Oh,
if you can sell.
well, that's terrible. That if you've left and you left the home, you've got to wait for a couple of
That's
years
right.
to
So I
sell
thought, I'm not staying out in the back of Beyond on my own.
it. Back and beyond.
So I put the house on the market, and I thought, okay, I'll be here 2 years. It was about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. They hammered the sign in to the garden, and at 9 o'clock the next morning there was someone knocking on my door saying, "I want to buy your house."
Wow. That made it easy.
So it made it easy. So I moved before the rest of the family.
That worked out well.
Yes.
Oh, gosh.
So I moved down to Newcastle too.
And you love it here?
Yes, I do.
Nice little paradise.
It
isn't
takes a while to get to know people, but
But like anywhere.
that's right. You've got to just accept people as they are.
And you never know who you're talking to. You never know who you're sitting next to.
No,
So if
that's
you're sitting
right.
at home and you're alone and you're wondering, like, you know, how can I meet a new group of people? Go to a coffee shop, sit down, talk to the person that's next to you.
I had a job at the airport, sort of meeting and greeting people for about 7 years, 8 years.
That would have been, what, oh, you mean like people coming in,
At Newcastle Airport.
just greeting people and...
Yes, and well, mainly looking after lost property. I have a problem sort of thing.
What was the weirdest piece of lost property?
Oh, golly. I suppose I used to carry a little walkie-talkie around with us. And a man got off a plane one day and he said, "You got the cricket score on you?"
Cricket score.
He thought I had an actual radio.
Oh dear.
Yes.
That's
But
creepy.
people used to lose their laptops, computers mainly. They'd take them out of the boot of a car in the car park, put them beside the wheel to get the rest of the stuff out, and then walk off without their computers. So we had to go around car parks looking for computers
Oh,
beside the wheels.
I thought I was the only person that did that. I've done the coffee cup on the roof. I don't know how many times I've done that, quite a few. But what was the weirdest thing, do you think, that you found, or that was there lost?
Well, I don't think there was anything
Strange.
too weird, except through the main doors as you come in and to arrivals, there was a little hole at the side of the door. And one day I went out and I saw a little head coming out of this hole. And it was a snake.
Oh, wow.
So we had to get the snake catcher in to come and get
Can
the
only
snake
happen
out
in
of the hole.
Newcastle Airport.
Yeah.
Lucky you saw it.
Luckily, yeah.
So, okay. Well, it's been, coming from your first career in Paris.
That's right.
L'Oreal
It takes you everywhere. When I lived in Sydney, because we did live in Sydney for a while, I did an interior decorating course, and which was actually great fun by the time you go out and advise people.
Yeah, it'd be a great career, I reckon. That's probably why your house looks so beautiful.
And I always liked fabrics, putting them together and not having a definite sort of theme through the house. Eclectic look. And colours too. And mix and match makes it much more interesting.
Well, you've led a very exciting life, I'll say. Not your average everyday life.
Well, particularly when we were rearing cattle, because I came off a farm too in England, so it wasn't actually new to me. But from here, we used to go around the world looking for probably the best bloodline.
Wow.
And we ended up in all sorts of places.
What an exciting life that would have been.
We did have a partner at one stage who was actually French but lived in Mexico City. And we lived with he and his wife probably for about 2 months with the children, and they supplied nannies and boats and anything we wanted to do. And Mexico was just wonderful. We did the whole of South America.
Wow. And how many years ago was that?
Well, that's when the children were very little. So I would say my eldest is nearly 50, and she would have been about 8. So it's a long time ago.
Wow, it's been fabulous. So, just with what's the whole thing, your whole life, like it sounds so exciting, and I guess to having a lot of heartache with Julia and with your daughter, and how hard that would have been to go through that. So and I'm sure there's someone out there that's watching the show tonight that is either living with bipolar themselves, have a husband, a wife, or a sibling, someone that they know going through bipolar. And if I said to you that I'd like you to leave them with a message, what would that message be? So if you just look down at that camera and look over there and speak to them as if you're giving them some sort of a message.
Well, I'm just thinking, I think the thing that's worked for me is very often the one you're caring for doesn't want to really empty their heart or disclose to you. So I found that it's a lot easier to send Julia to a psychologist on a very regular basis, like every few weeks, and talk to them. And that's what's kept us going.
It's a very good point. So, you know, like the thing is, go and get help. I've spoken about this many, many times on how important it is to actually get help when you're in those sort of circumstances. And don't be afraid to speak to someone in your family or a friend. You know, if you're not quite sure about what to do, speak to someone. Speak to Lifeline. There's lots of organisations around that you can contact and get assistance with. And my little message tonight too is, if anyone is, and there'd be a lot of people out there that are suffering with diabetes, you know, it is so important to keep that looked after and to do the right thing and to listen to what your doctors say and really look after yourself that way. We did speak with Jenny Winkles a few weeks ago, and as a result of diabetes, when such a young age of 10, you know, that she has now had the transplants. So 2 kidneys and a pancreas. So, you know, it's just an unbelievable thing that, you know, you need to do something about and keep up with the medications and really look after yourself and be mindful at how important it is to really look after yourself when you've got a situation like this. So tonight I want to thank a lot of the people that have constantly supporting us in what we're doing. So Larry Lowe, thank you Larry. Kerry Morks, thanks Kerry. Trudy McGovern, Michelle King, Michelle Douglas, thanks for tuning in, Michelle. We've got Amber Jane Sterling, thanks darling. Louise Melrose, Tracy Waddell, Monica Gilbert, thank you for tuning in. And Jai, man, like what? Thanks for listening, Jai. Shireen Lowe, Margaret Moffat, Leah Jones, Susie Juno, thank you. We interviewed Susie last week. What an amazing interview that was. Debbie O'Donoghue, Denise Martin, thank you Denise. Gavin Scott, thank you. Karen Humphreys, Craig Hamilton, thank you Craig Hamilton. Hopefully we'll be seeing you on this show very shortly. And Dee Balcombe. So thank you everyone, time and time again. And I know there's plenty more names to mention, but you know, I could be going on all night. And thank you, Jane, for joining us and telling us your story. And
Pleasure, I love doing it.
Thank you. And I look forward to next week. We've got some great ones coming up. We've got, I mean, I'll be doing lots of teasers throughout the show or throughout the weeks, but one particular story that sticks in my mind right now is my friend Dave. And he's a transgender, and he's going to tell his story about living his life as Dana. And I know you guys are going to be excited about it just as I am, because this is it's an unbelievable opportunity to get it out there. And we've got a little surprise about something wonderful that an organisation here in Newcastle did. So I've got some great people coming up, and hopefully we'll have Craig Hamilton too really soon. So everyone, I'd like to say thank you so much for joining me. Thank you everyone, and no matter what, don't give up. Know that you're okay, and just don't give up. Know you're going to be okay. And thanks for me, and I'll see you next week. Bye for now.